I don't wanna sit in a get with you, baby, tonight. I don't wanna love, I don't wanna fight. I don't wanna have to tell you all the things I know. I don't wanna stay, but I don't wanna go. I don't wanna be the lover in your arms. I don't wanna be the one to keep you from home. I don't wanna be the crooked person in your heart. I don't wanna start, but I don't wanna start. Part-time lover, how we suffer now. And I don't wanna waste no more of your precious time. I don't wanna say that everything will be fine. I don't wanna feel your tears on my skin. I'm a coward, baby, don't let me in. Part-time lover, how we suffer now. So I don't wanna sit in a get with you, baby, tonight. I don't wanna love, I don't wanna fight. I don't wanna have to tell you all the things I know. I don't wanna stay, but I don't wanna go. shopping for me. Wear weary eyes, no more will we. I'm going land to see my father. I'm going land, no more to roam. I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home. I'm going land to see my brother. He said he'd meet me when I come. Hush, little darling, don't say a word. I'm gonna buy you a mockingbird. Say, darling, say. And if that mockingbird don't sing, I'm gonna buy you a diamond ring. Yes, and I know that diamond ring. Yes, I know that diamond ring is gonna shine. Darling, if you'll marry me, I'll buy you a house with a big oak tree. Say, darling, say, we'll live in the house with the big oak tree. 3 little babies on your knee. Yes, and I know Yes, I know that diamond is gonna shine. So hush, little darling, don't say a word. I'm gonna buy you a mockingbird.
Hello, this is Thumbs United. We're doing our creative stream of working on the California project. We're currently editing stereoscopic photographs shot with the GoPro 3D system. And what's nice about this is because the GoPro has a viewing angle when set to its widest angle. It's about 122 degrees. And so we're able to use the 3D photographs in a way that's very similar to 180 degrees VR, but it's not just close to 180 degree VR, it's stereoscopic VR. And actually a lot of the websites that release 180 degree VR, which is just left, right, up, down, but in front of you and there's nothing behind you, and they actually do usually use the GoPro 3D system. It's not really well supported. I don't think they offer any 3D system. They did I have the original, the Hero 2, but they went up to the Hero 3 Plus and 4, and they didn't support it after 5. So there are ways you can get it, but it's not a current thing. So let's get started. So it's kind of funny, but you see the shadow over here. I'll make it bigger. It's actually my kite. That's why it's upside down. So I have this kind of special kite. It's an airfoil, and it's large, but it's not super large. And it was inexpensive. It cost about $30, and so I'm actually able to attach my GoPro. And so this is the 3D GoPro system, which is 2 GoPros tethered together, so it is pretty heavy for a kite, but it gets it in the air. I'm currently working on a system for holding a VR camera, because a VR camera has better stabilization, like a lot better. I have to change some hotkey stuff. Change some hotkeys. So hold on a second. I use a program called AutoHotkey, and it lets you turn everything into whatever you want. So you could, if you had the time, you could reprogram every key on your keyboard, even if it has no special keys. You can reprogram them, all of them. So that's what I just did. But not only can you do different commands, you can have it you can have it do sentences. So like if you press the letter P twice in a row, it could say like pepperoni pizza please. You can do it with different shortcuts. It's really cool. But the reason why I had to get it is because I have a Microsoft keyboard. The Microsoft Comfort Keyboard 1 version 1A. Now, you would think that this keyboard would work with Windows, as it is a Microsoft keyboard. However, that is not the case. It works kind of if you plug it in, but none of the hotkeys work. None of the mouse buttons could be reprogrammed, which it used to be able to do, and you could do when the keyboard was used on the Mac, but not in Windows anymore. So I was like, you know what, never fear. I'll download the driver, manually download the driver for the keyboard. So I go to Windows and they're like, oh, here's our mouse and keyboard extended driver pack. And I was like, yeah, I'll get that. Surely that will work. And nope, the keyboard's too old. And it said, you know, if you want to use this keyboard, you have to use the legacy pack. So I go and I download the legacy pack, unable to install. It always crashed. It said it needed one version of a library, but it would not download that version of a library. So it was really like, what in the world? So that's why I had to download this third-party app that lets me, you know, reprogram everything. But that's kind of why I had to get the AutoHotkey application. I actually downloaded a different one first, and it wasn't able to do anything. It was just like, what? I'm actually really excited. I got some pretty good footage last evening, and so I can't wait to edited it. And in addition to that, I'm coming out with a new series, and I'm gonna release it in one huge chunk on Patreon, but it's only gonna be like 3 or 4 days in advance on Patreon, but it's really meant to come direct to Twitch, and it's called the Classical Graph Series. Get it? Because it's like classical and photograph, and so that's coming out. And so right now, what's coming out is the New York project. So all the footage we edited for the New York project, the 35mm and the 4K footage, that was used for the New York classical graph. And we have people like Hayden, we have Demusi, we have a whole bunch of people, Alexander, Scripton, and so it's a whole bunch of classical music on the piano. It took a lot of work. I had to sort through over 3,000 MIDI files. Now what a MIDI file is, well, first I went into these classical music archives, and they have the MIDI files, which they're sheet music. But what a MIDI file is it's the actual keys to the music. So an easy way to think of it is like if you had the keys on the piano, it's the digital file of where those keys are and everything. And so you can convert pretty easily if you have sheet music in the digital form. You can export it as a MIDI file. And the other way you can do it is if you're recording in a program from a electric piano, the keyboard, it will record it into a MIDI file. And it's you can kind of do it with GarageBand. That's how I used to record my piano music. But it's difficult to get the MIDI file out. There are ways to do it. But usually if you record in GarageBand, you can only use GarageBand to edit it and everything. The good news is that GarageBand has a really good synthesized piano. It's a Steinway. But I wanted to use Windows to do it because my Windows computer is more powerful, and I needed to do it faster in terms of sorting everything. And so I sorted through over 2,000 MIDI files. I was able to get this huge archive of classical music, tons of composers, some I've never heard of, from all over the world. And so you can't just play a MIDI file. You have to actually put it in your music editor to listen to it, because it has to render it. So I did that. I had to do it for each one, and then I selected the best, and then I had to export them. So once I selected them, I had to one by one, make some edits to the music. I had to edit not just the volume, but the pressure at which the keys were pressed. That's called the velocity. So if you slam your hand on the piano, that in the digital piano, it measures it as how hard you press. Now there are two ways to do it for the electric piano. Either the velocity is measured by speed. So if you quickly slam your hand on the keys, it thinks, okay, that key was pressed pretty fast, so it must be hard. But the high-end electric pianos will actually measure force. So if you press it hard but not fast, they'll say, okay, that was a really hard press. Now the second way is better and easier, especially if you have weighted keys. And so weighted key, it's a little bit hard. There's more resistance to press, and it's just like pressing a key on a real piano. And so it's easier to control and everything, where my electric piano does not have weighted keys, and so it's just like pressing keys on a keyboard, computer keyboard, and so you get no feedback. So that is difficult to play, because it relies on you know, pressing the keys faster, and it's easier to make mistakes because you're trying to press the keyboard so much faster that if you miss, you know, the key, like you literally have to take your hand off the key and then slam it down. And there are ways to increase the sensitivity so you don't have to do that, but it's hard for me because like if I increase the sensitivity, then it's like I barely tap the key and it's at like maximum volume. So I recommend if you get an electric piano, electric keyboard, that you get one with weighted keys, and make sure it has, well, first make sure that it has the ability to record the velocity, because a lot of the inexpensive ones don't actually have that feature. And then number 2, make sure it has a MIDI port so you can record software instruments from the computer. And then 3, make sure it has weighted keys. And all that drives up the price, but it's worth it. But so with the classical graph, I took these MIDI files and I was researching, you know, how to get a synthetic piano with really good audio. And so I found this pack. I believe it's called Ivory Keys, if you Google it. Now they offer it for free, and it's legal. You can download it with BitTorrent, but if you donate to them, they'll give you a direct download through your web browser. So just, you know, instead of BitTorrent. And so I don't have BitTorrent set up on my computer, and it's like I don't want to set it up, so I donated to them. But what the pack is, it's called a SFZ, and so they actually went through with a microphone and recorded every note on a Steinway Model B piano, which is a really high-end piano. And so they did 2 versions actually. They recorded every key press on the piano with the microphone close up, and it sounds really good. But they also did a recording with all the keys, you know, pressed one at a time. They did that with the microphone far away in a really well acoustic styled room. And so once it plays the MIDI file, what it does is, so they record, you know, one file with one note. And so then with the MIDI file, and even with the electric keyboard, like you press the C key wherever the note C, and then it will actually play the audio file of the piano pressing the C note. So what's nice is because it's not digital, it's not synthetic. I mean, it is synthetic, but it's a synthetic using real world audio files, that it sounds, you know, completely real. And then there's a combination of effects to make it sound, you know, in a concert hall, in a cathedral. You can really choose what you want it to sound like. And so that's what I did for the classical graph. And there's also, so there's New York that's coming out very soon. It might be Tuesday or so. It will be coming on Twitch, and I'll be releasing it as a produced content rerun. Which the produced content reruns, we edit a lot of, like we're editing now, we edit almost non-stop. I've been editing on Twitch for close to 4 years, and so once we edit, the final export I upload to Twitch as a video, and then I do it as a rerun. And that's mainly because there are ways where I can live stream the video, but then it gets deleted after 30 days, and then I have to restream it. And some people don't like it because they're like, oh, you're not really live, you're just rebroadcasting, a video. And they don't quite understand that it's actually the finished product that we've been editing on Twitch for like 5 or 6 months. And so that's why I do it as a rerun. And then people kind of understand that I'm not sitting there at the computer doing it, if that makes sense. Because sometimes when people come and stop by while I'm doing a live stream of things we edited, they're like, talk, and I was like, no, this is a premiere. This is the video coming out. It's not so much about my interaction. That's what the creative media productions are for. So we're already at 40 minutes. I don't know how long we're gonna edit. I have to go to the pet store, and I don't know what time they close. It's kind of funny because, well, I don't get out of the house normally that much. Like usually the only reason why I would go out is for food. Like in a normal situation is for food or to go to parks and stuff with my grandmother. Actually, I take that back. We would go out semi-regularly because we did go to a lot of parks and everything outdoors. And we used to go to the opera at the movie theaters, which I highly recommend. Highly. Like, you should do that once. And it's nice because if you go to the movie theater and you get, a lot of movie theaters, if you get the large drink, you'll get free refills. And so the operas, in my youth, I could do this. But the operas, they're 4 or 5 hours. But there's like 2 or 3 intermissions. And the intermissions are long. They're like 10 minutes. And they actually interview the actors and everything during that intermission. So you really get to see behind the scenes. You get to see them do the set changes, and like they move fast and it's really organized. And these are the operas at the Met in New York. But back to the drink. So you drink the drink, and of course, you have to go to the bathroom. So you wait till the intermission, but then you can actually get a refill on the drink or refill on the popcorn. Because I've never understood getting a free refill, for a regular 2-hour movie. I mean, that's nice because then what you do is on your way out, you can, grab an extra soda. But with the operas, it's like you get a free refill. So that's nice during the performance. But I don't drink as much soda anymore. Like, it kind of messes me up. And before I started noticing that I get messed up when I drink soda. And I thought it was the caffeine, but then so I switched from like Coke and Dr. Pepper. I tried not getting caffeine. Like, my insomnia comes back really, really hard if I drink soda. And it was kind of okay in my youth because it was like, that was intentional. It was like, okay, I want to stay up till 7 in the morning to do work. But as I've gotten older, I don't have to do that anymore. And you get better at working and organizing your time. And then you also realize, from experience, that yes, I could pull an all-nighter, but the quality of work, as you get more and more tired, you start to slow down and the quality gets questionable. And in addition to that, you start making more mistakes and having to redo things throughout the night. And so I don't do overnight work anymore, unless my sleep schedule is tuned to staying up late, which it's not anymore. I actually have a somewhat healthy sleep schedule now. Like, I'm getting up at 9 and 10 in the morning, almost on my own without the alarm. So that's nice. Now, I'm not quite sleeping through the night. My body does this weird thing where I'll fall asleep, like into a deep sleep, and I'll fall asleep relatively quickly for my standards. It will take me like 15-20 minutes to fall asleep, and then I stay asleep for like 20 or 30 minutes, and then I wake up, wide awake, and it's like, okay, time to get up. And it's like, and this is how I know, because I check my watch, and it's like, are you kidding me? It's only been 30 minutes. I have the whole rest of the night. And so after that 30-minute power nap, then it's like, okay, then that's when the insomnia comes back, and it's difficult to fall asleep again. Okay, gonna take a short break. Gonna grab another cup of coffee and set up the next project. this is kind of funny, but I kind of forgot I was live streaming, and I was just started editing kind of by myself. So sorry about that. Now, the only thing I did was add the animation layer, but so you didn't miss out on any of the animation. And this is going up the coast of Highway 1, and it's an extremely beautiful drive, but it's really nerve-wracking to do, because as you can see, you're on the edge of a cliff. And I drove this once in the worst way. I didn't even have my driver's license when I drove this. I had my learner's permit, and in the United States, a lot of places, it's kind of like getting a pilot's license, where you take a course, and in that course you drive in the student vehicle. So that's step one, with a licensed teacher. But step two, so once you pass that, and you have to take a test, and the instructor has to drive with you. Once you pass the test, you have to get, I think it was 40 hours of driving in daytime and like 10 hours of driving at night. But you can't do it by yourself. You have to do it with a parent. And if you don't have a parent, but you have a sibling that's like 21 or older, you can do it with them, or you do it with a guardian. So you have to get your hours. So I was in California, and you're like, oh, let's do this road trip. You know, I'll drive most of it. My parents were like, how I could drive most of it, and it would be an easy way to get a ton of hours in. So we're driving, and driving up north to California is pretty easy. You take one freeway essentially. Like, I think you take 60, but then from 60 you'd go to I-5, and from where I live, you take 60. And so once you get to I-5, it's just farmland. Like, Southern California is a huge city, Los Angeles, and then around Los Angeles there's like a ton of activity, tons of people. But once you get out of the Southern California area, the whole middle of California is, farmland. It's cows, and I think they grow a lot of dates, a lot of food, tomatoes, everything. And it's actually funny because there were a group of people that want to split up California into 3 states or 3 voting blocks. And a lot of that is because, 90% of the people, live in either Southern or Northern California. So the legislation and everything they vote on, of course, is very good for the city and everything. And so, but it's even funnier than that because the things people vote on and the administration for Southern California isn't even that great for Northern California, like for San Francisco and Monterey Bay and everything, or Berkeley. And so there were a big group of people that were saying, let's split up California, because you can imagine that if you're voting on stuff for like water usage was a big thing. So California passed this law that restricted the amount of water you could use, but it didn't take into account the amount of water farmers could use. So there were all these farms that were like, we actually kind of have to use more water to grow our plants. And they were like, nope, you can't do that. It's against the law. And so there were a lot of kind of protesting. And so it was kind of stupid because a lot of the farms, they couldn't grow as much as normal, so they didn't make as much money. A lot went under. And then the joke of it is, there were several lakes in the middle of in the middle of California, and they weren't allowed to use the water from that. And so some places had an overflow of water, but because Southern California was, in this big drought, legally they weren't supposed to use it. And that kind of also horsed Northern California, because Northern California, can get a lot of its water from Oregon, from Oregon and Washington. There are all the streams that go to there, so they don't quite go into the same drought as Los Angeles. And so they were kind of restricted unnecessarily in their water usage. And so it's kind of an example of the tyranny of the majority, because there's a ton of people that live in Southern California, and so the things that they vote on, it's only good for them because most of the people live there, but it affects a huge group of people in the rest of the state where those policies are quite detrimental. So that's part of the reason that it's a republic. And so that it's because not only is it more fair to smaller communities that might get horsed, but it also makes sure that the resources go to different people that need it, versus one city deciding everything for themselves. It would help out the farmers, it would help out other cities. So that's kind of like when you see on social media, they're like 90% of the people voted for this. And it's like, yes, they did, but that legislation actually horses a lot of people that don't live in the area. Like let's say they passed a law saying it is mandatory that you go to the beach 5 times a day. That's fine for Southern California because the beach is like 20 minutes away, but with traffic it's an hour. But if you live in the middle of California, there's no beach, so how can you do that? And then on a statewide level, it's like if you pass all this, like you're only allowed to take a shower once a day, and you have to choose I think in Texas, they did actually pass this law where you're allowed to either shower once a day or you can do laundry. You're not allowed to do laundry and take a shower. And so, that works for Austin, that works for Texas. It's not ideal. But, like, you come to Michigan, where we have the Great Lakes, which is, it's a high percentage of all the fresh water in the world. And it's like, why would we limit the amount of water we can use? Like, we have so much. The funny thing, I saw this chart, and it was like the fresh water that we drink, and it's this tiny circle because most of the water is salt water in the ocean, and then it's like the only water we use for toilets and septic and everything, and of course it's all fresh water because we're not going to pump in salt water to the middle of the states. But it is kind of funny because we use the sewage with the only water we drink. So I thought that was funny. You can see I switched where the GoPro was mounted, and these are 3D photographs, so that's why I can't zoom in as far as I normally do with the 2D or the 35mm photographs. I mean, I could technically do it, and there's enough resolution to do it. But what happens with 3D video and footage is you can do a little bit of zoom in, but if you zoom in further past a certain point, it's essentially the convergence gets messed up. Where convergence is it's actually like triangulation, and that's what the 3D is. So your left eye will focus on something, and of course it's your left eye, so it's to the left, and then your right eye will focus on that same thing, but it's slightly to the right because it's your right eye. And so the 3D is the triangulation, where it says, okay, this is the different in shape, color, and tone from the left, and then your brain says this is the difference from the right, and then it puts it together and says, okay, that slight difference of the two sections that I'm focused on is 5 feet away, 10 feet away. So that's how it judges the 3D. And so the important thing with 3D cameras is it provides a left image and a right image from two cameras spaced apart, and then it's presented on a screen. And with the glasses, the goal is the left eye can only see things from the left camera, and so it can choose. It can say, I'm going to focus on this, I'm going to focus on that. And then your right eye, again, with the glasses, is limited to only seeing the images on the right side, and it says, I'm going to focus on that. and so you're able to focus on whatever you want anywhere in the image, and your eyes will do the same conversions. Now there are issues where you want to kind of find this sweet spot. So a good rule of thumb is that when you're filming, you want the cameras to have a certain spacing between the left camera and the right camera, and so ideally you want it the same distance as the human eye. And if you're shooting at an extreme wide angle, you can actually make it space the cameras out a little bit farther than the human eye, but you don't want it too much. And because if you do, then that convergence that your eye does when you're viewing, it gets too difficult. It's essentially making it so as the further away the left and the right camera are, it's as though your eyes are starting to go in opposite directions, where it can't converge. You can't, do that 3D focusing as easily, and it gives you headaches and makes you dizzy. And so when you zoom in, there's more of a difference between the left camera and the right eye, and it's as though your eyes are going in completely separate directions. So with the GoPro, you're able to it's filmed with the cameras closer together, so you have a little bit of wiggle room to where you can zoom in, but you can't go past a certain point, or else the convergence gets almost impossible for your brain and your eyeballs to compute, and that's what gives people headaches and nausea and everything. And so in addition to that, this is kind of the problem with cinema 3D, is that the cameras are so large, it's very difficult to get the left camera and the right camera to be, an exact eye distance apart. And in addition to that, most of the lenses that are used are telephoto, and so telephoto doesn't really work well in 3D. You have to actually, overlap the cameras even further. And then the other thing that works against it is kind of the whole point of 3D is that you can choose where you want your eyeball to focus. And so that's why the 3D GoPro system works well, is because if you want to focus on something that's 5 feet away from you, you can do that, and your eyes can do both the convergence, but doesn't have to worry about actual regular focus. And but with traditional photography, the way that we do what is the word? The way we do, focusing points. I forgot. I should really know this word. The way we do points of interest and focal points, that's what I was looking for, is we have the foreground, out of focus, and the background out of focus. But then we have the areas where we want the audience and the viewers to look. We have that part in focus. And so that difference of what's in focus and what's out of focus creates a really, really basic way and really good way of having the viewer look at what we want them to look at, and it looks clearer because, like, if you're taking a picture of someone's head, the focus is razor sharp on them, and then everything behind them is a backdrop, and it's out of focus, and you don't really pay too much attention to it. But in 3D, you want everything in focus, and so then the viewer can, choose what they want to look at. And so you have this issue where if everything's in focus, it's actually harder for the audience to understand what they're looking at in a 2D environment, in a non-3D environment. So you would actually have to shoot movies two different ways, where not only do you have the 2D version where you have depth of field, you have the focal points and everything based on, the range of what's in focus, and then you would have the 3D film filmed with kind of infinity focus, where the viewers can choose what they want to look at. They can look at the distance, they can look at the actors, and in addition to that, that's the same issue with VR, where you don't really want a depth of field for a 360 video, because the whole point is the viewer can choose what they want to look at. They want to look at the environment to the left, to the right, up, down, whatever. The choice is entirely theirs, not the photographer's. The photographer just sets up the environment and where to place the camera and things like that. And so that's the other issue. It's interesting, the cinema 3D, because you can get the depth of field, and then what's in focus is actually popping out at you. But it's just, there's no way that movie studio would shoot at the same time essentially two different versions of the movie. There are ways you could do it, but if you're doing editing, there are ways you could edit one master cut and have it use that 3D footage with infinity focus and align it with the exact same thing, where the camera, the 35mm or the 70mm IMAX cameras, you can do the same edit that way. But the other issue is if you have any effects, then you actually have to do it twice. You would have to do it with the infinity focus version, where there's no depth of field. And a lot of special effects, 3D, CGI, most of it looks pretty good, and it's easier to render because it doesn't have to compute everything. Like things that are so far away from the camera, it's out of focus, and so the blurred pixels, it might have to render 5 pixels instead of 30 pixels for the areas that are far away. The Unreal Engine from Epic kind of does that a lot, where everything that's close to you is, very high quality, but then as things get farther away, they go slightly more out of focus. And it does that because you don't have to have as much textures and processing power for everything that's far away, because if they did, that would mean tiny things in the distance would have to compute each texture, like 2 megapixel texture, the exact same way it would compute a 2 megapixel texture of a box that's right next to you, but the one that's off in the distance is only it's 2 pixels big, and so it would have to calculate that versus a box that's right next to you, a crate that's right next to you, that is taking up, 50 or 100 megapixels of the screen. So by doing that optimization, it's a lot easier to compute. It can do it in real time, and it's essentially like, okay, I don't have to work so hard on this area of the screen, but I can devote those resources to rendering things that are closer, more in focus and everything. And so the same is applied with CGI, where you can tell the computer, this area of the screen doesn't need as much detail, it's out of focus, it's far away, don't spend so much time working on it. So if you take that away, where everything is in focus, it has to compute as much as possible for every area of the screen. And so if you had to do CGI for 3D photographs with infinity focus, that's exponentially harder. And then, because it's in 3D, you would have to have the left camera render and the right camera render and have that line up. So that's even harder. So it's like, so if you did the two camera setup and got it edited, you'd have to do 4 or 5 times the work. Like I said, we are going to come back to these and do the color grades. We're just doing the animation first. So this footage, it's still Highway 1, but we're away from the coast. And that was the other part of the story. I told this story before, but I was doing a road trip. I had my learner's permit, and we're driving, and as you can see, there's no coast. It's nice and safe. And so then my mom was like, okay, pull over. And my dad was like, oh, you don't have to pull over. You're doing fine. Like, my mom is beyond good with directions. Like, she is like a migratory bird, where if she drives there once, she remembers it for like forever. But so then we go over this one hill, and bam, you're on the side of a cliff. And so if you're going north, you're on this side where the cliff is, and there are rocks that are hanging out. And so it's like, you don't want to hit those, and it looks like you will hit them. And so you actually don't want to hug the wall, but it's 2 lanes, as you can see. And so if you don't want to hug the wall, then you're going closer to the oncoming traffic. Now, the oncoming traffic is actually on the edge, and they don't want to be on the edge, so they're moving closer to you. And so everyone passes, oncoming traffic passes extremely close to yourself, and then on the other side you have the rocks jutting out of the mountain and the cliffs, and so it was really scary. So I drove Highway 1 in a minivan when I was like 15. Do not recommend. I could do it now, no problem. Like, I've driven on cliffs, driven on the edge of huge bridges, but back then that was terrifying. So now we're going through the forest. I think we might end up on the cliff again, but it's sunset and you can see that the light is getting more orange and getting more golden hour light, which it takes a lot of work, the golden hour, because like if you're shooting a movie, you'll shoot a scene. Sometimes it takes multiple days to shoot something. In film school, I think they said for every minute of footage that you see in the movie theater, or however you're watching the video, there's 50 minutes of production work, setting up cameras, actually shooting that minute. So you have something that's, and so like it's in the name. Where the golden hour, the best time to shoot, right before sunset, it's an hour. So if it takes you 50 minutes to shoot 1 minute and you have a scene that's 10 minutes, you have to work really hard and really fast to get that scene shot, and you can't do it in one day. It's physically impossible with large scale shoots. With small scale, crews of 3 or 5 people, usually like indie films and student films, you can do it, but large scale stuff you can't. So if you shoot the scene one day, then you have to wait the entire next day to the golden hour. And it's the same thing. You have to wait for the setup. You have to get the actors to do their lines right, and everything has to happen within that hour, because once it gets past the golden hour, it's dusk, it's too dark, the light is completely different, and then the sun goes down and you're toast, because you can't have the light change. If in the movie it's supposed to all take place at the conversation or the action is all taking place within 5 minutes, it would be weird if, for each sentence going back and forth, it's like, oh, this scene started off during the daytime, but now it's nighttime for this one character, and then the other character replies, and then it's daytime, but by the time they finish their reply, it's nighttime, and then the other person answers back and it's daytime, and then it's nighttime, and so you have like 5 cycles with 3 sentences. It's not good. So that's why it's really hard to shoot movies, because you have to shoot in the same time, same weather, same lighting conditions, and then like if one day you shoot in the golden hour and you get 2 or 3 minutes of usable footage, and then the next day it rains, you have to wait till There's no clouds, there's no rain, unless your goal is to shoot, then you have the opposite problem. And then in addition to that, it actually matters what time of year. Even in California, and places, close to the equator, the light is a little bit different in winter than it is in summer. And the farther away you get from the equator, the differences are exaggerated. Where, if you go north from the equator, summertime in January, December, February, March, the light is a lot weaker. It's not as bright, and it's winter, so it's colder. And then in the summer, the light lasts longer. It's more orange. It's brighter, and so it really depends, not just on snow and stuff. Even if you aren't in areas that it's different, you can't shoot. Like if you shot the whole movie and then you want to do retakes, it's actually harder to do it if it's 6 months from when you originally shot. And so if you're at the equator, it's easier because the difference isn't that much. And it's the same with the southern hemisphere, only it's flipped, where summertime is in August, July, June, August, because it's in the southern hemisphere, and it has to do with the tilt of the Earth. It's not so much the distance that the Earth is away from the sun, it's the tilt, because it's at an axis that in our summertime in North America, the sun goes direct onto the Earth, and then in the summer and the winter in the southern hemisphere, the Earth isn't getting direct sunlight, so that's the reason the weather changes. But if you're by the equator, there isn't much difference in the angle change of the Earth throughout the year. And you can see we're back at the edge on the cliff, but okay, we're done with that one. We have time for one more. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I was looking at something with the audio. Something with the audio. This is the last one we'll be working on today. It's a little shorter. The other ones were 30 minutes each of photographs we had to edit. And we go through it so quickly because each photograph is only 2 keyframes. The images are between 11, 18, and 20 megapixels. But for the digital stuff, when I shoot on film, with film, the quality really has to do with your scanner. And so with the scanner, I'm able to do 100 megapixels, which most scanners can actually do that. It's not an issue. The issue is that it will take maybe 15-20 minutes to scan one image, and people don't want to do that. And that's okay, but I think it's worth it. Some of the clips I was talking about. Because I can't zoom in too much, I don't have a lot of choice on where to move the image once it's zoomed in. So that's part of the reason this goes so quickly. Versus shooting with 2-dimensional photographs. Wrong thing. I want 300%, making it a little bit clearer. want to thank everyone for coming out. We do the creative streams on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Tomorrow we'll be continuing to work on the California project. We have a lot to do in terms of animating. We have 10 projects. No, we have 11 projects to animate. In those past 2 hours, we animated 4. They were medium length, but they're only getting longer. So tomorrow we'll be continuing animating the photographs, and then Monday through Friday, I do the gaming Let's Play, which is all the Halos, all the difficulties. We're kind of planning on finishing Halo 2 on easy, and then probably starting Tuesday we start at the beginning of Halo 2 again on normal. We already did Reach on easy, normal, heroic, and legendary. We kind of just finished a Halo CE, Halo 1 on easy, normal, heroic, and legendary. And so now we're starting Halo 2. Well, we're finishing Halo 2 on easy. But then we start at normal, and then once we beat that, we're going to heroic and legendary before we go on to Halo ODST. We're playing in chronological order of events, not when they came out. And so the events of Halo ODST actually happened partway through Halo 2. So we're going to do ODST, then Halo 3, then Halo 4, Halo 5, and probably by the time we finish that, it takes us about 20 days per game. Halo 6 will come out, and we'll also do Halo 6. So I want to thank everyone for coming out. I hope to see everyone tomorrow for our continuation of the creative stream. But if not, stop by Monday through Friday for all the Halos, all the difficulties. Bye-bye.